We worked together with Evan's management agency, Miracle Bus, for this album project. We discussed it, talked about recording in a regular studio, but we wanted to pay special attention to the piano sound for Violet Evergarden. For example, the movie soundtrack had this huge concert hall kind of sound. We recorded that soundtrack at a large studio in Germany. Great acoustics and great reverberation. That sort of consideration is a hallmark of the kind of sound we emphasize in Violet Evergarden. We want to create those acoustics, that deep spatial sound in a large hall. So that's the proposal we got from the people at Miracle Bus, and I thought that was exactly what we needed. That's how we decided to record in a large hall rather than a recording studio. The hall in Tokorozawa was Evan and Miracle Bus's recommendation. Could you give us some more details on that, Evan?
For me, recording piano in studio is nice, but for this album, a bit more of a wide, reverberated sound is what we're looking for, like Sato-san said. And my manager at Miracle Bus, along with an engineer that we use a lot for mixing, they went over and checked several different locations to see what's the reverberation like in the room, checking the overall sound. And it's kind of an interesting thing. Just because a hall is big doesn't necessarily mean that the reverberation will be nice, or especially for a solo piano. So they went around everywhere looking at different places, and they came across the hall in Tokorozawa. And it was just the perfect place to record the piano. And they sent me some videos of it so I could hear what the sound is, and it sounded great. So I said, let's do it. And that's what we chose.
It couldn't be too huge or too small, and so we were glad to have him find a hall with the perfect acoustics. It had a really great balance. I trust Mr. Ikeda completely with things like that, so when he said that this hall was the one, then I said, I'm all for it. Haven't been there yet myself, though. But it was great when we finally went.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I didn't go there until the actual day of the recording, but Ikeda-san knows a lot about all this stuff, so, I put my faith in him, and it turned out great. I think, this time, different from when we're doing a full orchestral soundtrack. A lot of times when we're recording for the TV shows, we'll use a click track, a metronome, and the performers will play along with that. So it's very easy to, we say, punch in and punch out. If this part was wrong, so let's just fix this part real quick. This time, we were doing everything just free-flowing. So, okay, whenever you're ready, start playing. And then if he made a mistake, well, it's very hard to punch in just on one spot, because if you do that, then it's not going to match the tempo of the rest of the song, because everything is free-flowing. So we really tried to get a nice sense of just, it's a piano solo album. There's no rigidity to the performance, and keep it nice and flowing and, I guess, nice feeling, natural feeling. And that was a bit difficult because there's so many tracks, and it seems like, we have 6 to 7 hours. Well, actually, it was maybe about 7 hours each day or so, which seems like a lot of time, but when you're doing that much music, the time just disappears real quick. So we tried to, within the time frame, get the best performance as possible while still keeping the really natural feeling and accentuating the niceness of what is solo piano performance. Well, one thing like we just mentioned with trying to get the tracks all recorded was a big feat in and of itself. Well, another thing is we were very concerned. We want to be careful with outside noises and whatnot as well. And a lot of halls, you get a bunch of kind of strange sounds that just kind of bleed in through the microphone. But luckily at the hall at Tokorozawa, we didn't have too much of that, too many of those problems arising. But the thing was, we had to turn off the heater when he's performing, because the heater makes noise, and so the room would get kind of chilly inside, which when he's playing, if his fingers get cold, they get stiff, and that causes problems for him performing, and it's very, it's uncomfortable. So we try to perform a bit, and then he'd take a little break and we'd heat up the room, and he had a lot of hand warmers and brought a lot of hand warmers in with him. And that's the problem with recording in winter time. But yeah, that was not really an issue. It was just a little thing in the way of what would otherwise be a no problem kind of situation. But yeah, that's about it, I think. Yeah, for the mix, we want to be very careful with not having the miking sound too close, but not too far. We wanted to have it just right. So if it's too far, then it just sounds too distant, and you miss out on a lot of the warmth of the close microphones. So we did a couple of different variations of some of the tracks to try to figure out what balance is best. And then once we decided on the balance, we kind of went from there and adjusted it with all the other songs. And then from there also, we record the same parts several times just to see, well, we have one take, but just in case there's a problem and there's some crazy noise or something we don't notice during the recording, we usually take multiple takes. So before the final mix, I went through that and put together all the takes that I wanted to use in a way that I think, encapsulates the best way to listen to the song. And then with the mix, just overall feeling the warmth and depth to the sound, as well as making sure we can get rid of as many distracting noises as possible.
Working with the piano is like that, right? Where to place the microphones, which sound from which mic to use, that all determines the core sound in the end. So it's something the sound engineers and arrangers really pay attention to.
Yeah, we use the close microphones right on the piano and also pretty far away, so it sounds totally different if you cut out certain microphones, so it's a very delicate balance to try to get it just right.
We did find a lot of little sounds during the mastering process, didn't we? Mr. Nagao from the record label worked hard at checking through, and Evan and the others at the label checked through as well, to take out those unnecessary sounds one by one.
Yeah. There's a little bit of a limit to how much you could do with it. Some things, because it's solo piano, if it's a full orchestra and there's a lot of different sounds going on, a lot of times you won't even hear any of those sounds. But if you do, because there's so many different tonal colors, when you take out a little piece of noise, a little bit of noise, then it doesn't really affect the overall sound. But with solo piano, if you're, for example, sustaining a long note and there's like a little in the background, and you take that out, if you take it out, you'll notice in the piano a little bit of like a kind of deformation, I guess you could say. So there are a couple little tiny parts of that where there's just nothing you could do about it. It's just the way it is. And it's not necessarily the room. A lot of times the piano will have its own noises that it makes. And that's, just part of what piano is. And so the things that for me were, it bothers me, this is distracting, we got rid of all that. And we kept in a few of the ones that this is just what a piano is. And we left those in.
What was the piano like this time? What do you think, Evan?
Yeah, this time it was actually kind of a lucky find for us, because usually in that hall, it's not the biggest hall in that whole, I guess you could say, what do you call it? They have a large hall and a small hall. We were recording in one of the smaller halls because that's more appropriate for the sound we were looking for. But they usually don't let us use a Steinway piano in that hall. It's a Yamaha piano, which, I love Yamaha pianos as well too, but the sound we were going for this time was more of a Steinway kind of tone. And usually that Steinway's in the big hall and it's always there, and they've never brought it into the small hall before. But my manager, Ikeda-san, was really adamant about, we want to use this piano, please, and it was I am not involved in that aspect at all, but from what I hear, it was a real difficult struggle to try to get it in, but somehow he got it, and they weren't having any large performance that day in the large hall, so they let us bring the Steinway in and take out the Yamaha. And that's just another point that we were, it's not the biggest thing in the world necessarily, but it's another layer of what I think is more representative of the sound we were looking for.
Piano tracks end up being somewhat pared down versions, but I really understood just how wonderful Evan's melodies are through that process. It shows the true essence of the song in great detail when you take away the other instruments. If the melody wasn't a strong one, it wouldn't be able to be arranged like this. And if the melody is well thought out, there's no limit to how you can arrange it. I really discovered just how great Evan's melodies are thanks to producing this album. It's like how in cooking, if your ingredients are great, you can make great tasting food no matter how you prepare them. Evan's melodies are the best ingredients you can find. So whether it's an orchestra or a piano, or maybe even any other arrangement, I think it'll come out great. Really could feel the beauty of the melodies. That's what I felt. Another thing I enjoyed through this album was, I think the fans of the Violet series can listen, remember Violet, feel her story once more, and be able to experience that world for just one more minute, one more second. I think that's one of the significant things about this album. I think it'll be a great achievement for Evan, but also that it'll be a great album for all the Violet Evergarden fans as well.
Like Sato-san said, the tracks that we chose for this piano album were things that I think really fit a piano arrangement, and I'm just happy that we were able to do 2 full discs instead of just 1 disc. There are so many tracks, I had a hard time choosing, oh, well, I want to do this one as a piano track too, but it's not going to fit on the album. So there were a lot of consideration went into that, and I think it just came together in what I think is the best possible package, and I'm very satisfied with it, and I'm very excited for everybody to listen to it. It's been a great experience. It's been a very unique experience for me, having somebody else arrange my works and being involved so deeply with those arrangements. And I think all of us are involved are very happy with how it turned out, and I'm very excited to listen to it. The track list, it goes from the TV series all the way to the end of the film. I think it's just another new and unique way to experience her story, just from an oral perspective. So, I'm super excited about the release, and I hope everybody enjoys it.
I'm glad. I think I mentioned before, but the beauty that can only be felt through the piano is something you feel when the song's melody really stands out. I think that will be quite clear. You can feel it with the sound of the orchestra, of course, but by reducing it to just one piano, you understand what the inner framework of the song was. You could say, perhaps, that the track comes into a sharper focus, and your understanding of the track gets deeper as well.
Yeah, I agree with Saito-san on that. I think that when you're doing orchestration, you have your melody and you have your supporting, I guess you could say, inner harmonies and whatnot. But there's a lot of decoration with the orchestration that goes into orchestrating. And when you strip it down to just one instrument, you really get to hear, oh, this is the main focus of the original song. And it's just a unique way of listening to it. And I think also with some of the tracks, because we're arranging it for a solo piano and we want to keep the feeling of not the orchestral reduction, but as a solo piano performance album, that it's just it's a different way of experiencing it than it is just the original soundtrack. It's something that can only be done with a solo piano, and it's an expression that is different and cannot be found in the original works.
These aren't easy scores. Not easy at all, I think. I think they'll need a lot of practice time. But when you can finally play them, you'll have a great sense of satisfaction.
Yeah, I think for people attempting to play some of the piano scores, there's a lot of difficult pieces, but there are a few simple ones as well, as you'll hear when you listen to the album. I think if you're making an attempt at playing it, you could start with some of the simpler songs, which I think you could play at maybe a beginner to intermediate level, Whereas some of the more difficult ones, maybe the most difficult is probably about concert master level, but I think if you are interested in improving your skills at piano, it's a great way to experience Violet Evergarden's music and slowly build up your skills and play more and more songs. And for the recording, we had Sato-san try to play 2 hours of music with hardly any time to practice beforehand. But for you guys at home, you could take as much time as you need on any of the songs and get it down and then move on to another one, and hopefully by the end of it, be able to play all of them.
I think this is an album through which you can rediscover, enjoy the world of Violet Evergarden once again. I hope you'll listen through, and I hope you'll think back to Violet's story. And this is an album that really shows the quality of Evan's music. So I hope you'll listen and feel a new appreciation for Evan as well. Enjoy the album.
For me, I agree with Saito-san. I think that it's just another opportunity to enjoy the world of Violet Evergarden from a new perspective this time. And I'm really excited, personally, to have the opportunity to share all this music and these arrangements with everybody. And it's just, it's a great honor to work together with Saito-san again for this. And I'm really excited for this release and hope everybody enjoys it. And if you pick up the scores as well, it'll be the same on the score as it is on the album. So you can study the scores and listen to the album at the same time, or just enjoy them separately. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you are too.